All right, everyone, we start off today obviously talking about the school shooting in Texas. Unfortunately, there are 15 people now dead. I believe 2 teachers, 13 students, and at this time, I think there are still a couple of people unaccounted for. The perp, Salvador Ramos, that was confirmed the other day, also killing his grandma and having a shootout with Border Patrol prior to entering this school and slaughtering a bunch of people. It's being used, and this is obvious. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit to even point out that this is happening. The lives of the people that were killed and the situation there and the problems that people are going to face, grieving and emotions, have taken a complete backseat, unfortunately, because public discourse, inevitably, when something like this happens, there's sort of a categorical hierarchy, right? If the individual happens to be a troubled white male, it will be blamed on toxic masculinity, racism, something like that. If anything else is the case, it defaults to guns bad. I would like to point something out. This is the sleaziest thing that I'm seeing right now from the legacy media with regards to this. Actually involves Texas, which, by the way, will be involved in all 3 videos that I make today, because we've also got to cover the Paxton-Bush race, of course Paxton winning, and the demographics is destiny refutation, actually as the new tech exclusive of the day, because we're looking at Texas not following that predicted trajectory that some black pillars would say. Here's the thing. I'm seeing a lot of people chalking this up to lax gun control policy in Texas. Texas has too many guns. Greg Abbott months ago was bragging about how you could get a gun without registry or training, and that's why Salvador Ramos decided to kill a bunch of people, because the availability of guns made him crazy. I guess that's the line they're going with. I'd like to point out that there are a significant number of mass shooting events that happen in states with a lot of gun control. The fact that Texas has almost none, like you can even carry a broadsword or a battle axe around in public in Texas, it is very lax. Why then do you have so many mass shootings in California or New York? And I've noticed there's a differentiation about how these things are covered when it happens in a place like Texas or Wyoming versus when it happens in like a California. And the remedy for it that's proposed is also separately debated. And this is really, I mean, it's bizarre that people don't really pick up on this. If it's a lax gun control state, of course I don't call it lax myself, but they'll use that term, then it's the state's fault. Specifically, I guess it's Greg Abbott's fault. Greg Abbott handed him an AR-15 and said, "Hey kid, go to school today. Remember, stay in school and don't follow the rules." If it's a blue state, all of a sudden it's about federal policy. The funny part is, the policies that are being proposed as they would have stopped this school shooting at Uvalde in Texas. These kids could be alive today if only we had common sense gun control, and Texas is like cowboy land. Much of that gun control policy already exists in places like California. Magazine restrictions, age restrictions that blatantly violate the Constitution, and that will eventually be a SCOTUS case with regards to purchasing assault rifles, really sporting rifles that are aesthetically similar to military-grade weaponry, not select fire, etc. You have expanded background checks, various registries, various red tape. You've got prices for licenses, and this is literally before SCOTUS as we speak, for concealed carry. In some cases, you've got the no open carry. You already have all of these various restrictions that are spoken of as being meaningful to stopping gun crime. But where they've been imposed, they haven't stopped gun crime. Look at Chicago, for example. There are mass shootings there on a regular basis, and singular shootings on literally a daily basis, sometimes 20 people shot in a single weekend. Chicago has a lot of gun control. Illinois at large has a lot of gun control. And yet this keeps happening. The reason why we look at an event like this and we weigh it as more important, well, number one, it involves little kids, so automatically there's a more visceral emotional reaction. That's understandable. Fewer people seem to care if 20 gangbangers get shot in drive-bys in a weekend in Chicago. I wonder why. The fact is this, though. The plurality of gun crime in the United States, if you wanted to actually save lives, you wouldn't waste your time worrying about the occasional shooting of this kind. They're fairly uncommon. They're typically relegated to urban areas. Of course, this happening in a smaller city. It's not exactly New York. The plurality happen in crime-blighted inner-city areas. They involve handguns that have not been limited in any meaningful way as to capacity, type, purchasing, and so forth ever, and never really come up for discussion for federal gun control attempts, occasionally for state gun control attempts. But those are the weapons typically used. They're typically associated, by the way, with cartel and gang activity that's at least partially related to the border crisis. Rather ironic, because there was literally a shootout with border control prior to this massacre happening. One agent got shot. I believe he's actually okay now. He managed to walk out of the school, so hopefully the dude, is fine. It's good that the shooter's dead. Got liquidated, by the way, by a person using a gun, just so that people out there that are pushing a particular political line are aware. But I wanted to point out that differentiation. In the coverage, Texas bad right now. If it had been California, it wouldn't be Newsom had failed. California bad, California doesn't have enough gun control. No, then they would default to an entirely different line. I would also say that there is definitely an ethnic and racial bent to a lot of the reporting right now. I mean, initially, the knee-jerk response in the hours prior to Abbott confirming who had actually allegedly done this, I think it's beyond allegation. Person's dead. Pretty easy to ID once they're fucking cold. The initial response that I saw among leftoids wasn't even gun-related. It was, another evil white male inspired by MAGA. That appears not to be the case. If anything, this individual probably will be revealed eventually to have left-leaning beliefs, possibly. There could be a component related to immigration here. This individual appears to be a citizen, but there could be some sort of an ethnic component to it. Not sure why he shot his grandmother first, supposedly. Anyway, the story's just all messed up. And the reporting on it is disgraceful. People are using it on literally every side of every possible element of the political spectrum to try to push their ideas. The bodies aren't even fully... the blood's still not even dry yet. A bunch of little kids got shot. You've got a group of people that are trying to use it for an ethnic argument. A group of people that are bizarrely claiming that if Texas was more like California, it wouldn't have mass shootings. Another group of people saying, well, this is why we need to arm the schools more. Well, that's maybe more of a sane suggestion than guns bad or something like that. But again, it's not really going to be feasibly implemented, and that's the other part. The other part that I really hate is that while the bodies are still warm, while the blood's still drying, while supposedly several people are still unaccounted for, and that may be the case for a while, I'm waiting for an update on that. While all these things are happening, all of the proposals that are being promoted aren't going to happen. It's just like, it is kind of a little bit like after Sandy Hook. There were pushes for gun control. Gun control became less popular actually afterwards, especially with the crime-ridden status of many parts of the U.S. and the suburbs beginning to be infected by the inner-city crime increasingly, and with prosecutorial forces unwilling to prosecute far-left rioters, with a porous border and increased cartel and drug activity, people are arming up more, actually, which is probably a wise thing to do. But there will be no further gun control, certainly not in Texas. You don't have the votes in the Senate to do it at the federal level. So when Elizabeth Warren sits there crying crocodile tears, it's just grandstanding. There's not going to be a panacea bill for gun crime and school shootings that actually allocates money to put armed guards in all public schools. Again, while that may be pragmatic, it's not pragmatic to push the concept because you do not have the political leverage to do so right now. If the Republicans were to put forward such a bill, it would be blocked because the Democrats would automatically attach riders that had to do with trying to ban assault weapons and ban expanded magazines and things that aren't even constitutional, and the bill would die. It might not even pass muster in the House, certainly let alone the Senate, and would be DOA once it got there. I would point out that Congress was more than willing not that long ago to allocate 40 billion smackaroonies to a foreign state while we're on the brink of a recession, but they're not willing to pony up 40 billion to put an extra armed guard in each school. Which, again, it would be sensible to do that, but it wouldn't be pragmatic. Right now, Congress has its head up its ass, Everyone's just grandstanding. They don't even know the names of any of the victims, but they're weighing in as though they're an expert on gun control policy and the nature of the state of Texas, pretending that if it was more like a blue state, magically shootings wouldn't happen. This is not the case. I wish these people would just shut up. For once, why don't you just let the community mourn instead of having a long, drawn-out political debate on day one when the blood is still fresh on the friggin' floor. That's about all. Peace out.